Just a few words about me before we start. I work for Ducati since 1996, which means a lot of time. I started as a structural analyst, and then I became head of chassis design department, and I've worked as a chassis design department manager for 13 years. Then at the end of 2019, our CEO asked me to move to the innovation in order to use my experience in the product to look for new technologies and materials that can be pre-developed and used in the next products of our long-range product plan. R&D services are two departments, one dedicated to materials and the other one to technologies. They are sort of working for both chassis, engine and electronics for the development, to give aid to the design department during development, but also to analyze the part coming back from the field that has some problem, and to help us understand which can be the corrective action to solve those problems. The experts in technologies, they are very critical for us, because maybe you know that we design more or less all the components of our bikes, but we do not manufacture more or less nothing in-house, which means that we have to work together with the suppliers, and therefore it's very useful to have experts in technologies, the technologies that are used to manufacture our parts, that can visit the supplier and work together with them to develop the toolings in order to fulfill the specification that we give to the suppliers. After this short introduction, we will have a glance, a look at Ducati, starting from the very beginning. A fascinating history. So a quick overview on the history of Ducati. Then we will have a look at the values that are guiding our work, everyday work. A very quick look at our model range. Then we will see why racing is very important for us. And we will see that there is not only motorcycle in the Ducati business, but also other things that are very useful to build the loyalty of our customers and the feeling of being part of a great family of passionate for motorcycles. And finally, a very quick glance at the numbers that are very useful to understand the dimension of a company. I was saying a fascinating history, and there's a racing superbike in the picture, because Ducati is very well known for his racing heritage, but I'm trying to echo. Everything started back in 1926. Ducati was a company that developed electronics components. Only in 1946 we started to develop the very first motorcycle called Cucciolo. I'm trying to echo. And the Cucciolo was sort of a bicycle with a very small engine fitted in, but it was peculiar that it was used very early for in competition on gravel roads and very small displacement bike, but it was in any case a competition, a championship. Then those are some of the most iconic points of our history, and of course Fabio Taglioni is mentioned here because he was the inventor of the desmodromic timing system, which is used also in these days in the MotoGP engines. And of course, the geometry and dimension of a system was totally different. There were like 3 shafts instead of only 2 to move the valves and the rocker arms, sorry. But the concept was more or less the same that is in these days. With the introduction of improved materials and especially surface finishing or surface treatments, it was possible to deal with higher RPMs without having any issue. Therefore, of course, the system that is used in the MotoGP engine is a highly sophisticated one, but the original idea is more or less the same. Going further in our history, you see some other historic achievements in the racing fields, like the driver championship in 2007, and then some other steps that are milestones in our history. In 2012, we became a part of a VW group, and we are now directly owned by Audi. That was really a big step in our history, because being part of a group of 700,000 people means that we have access to a lot of knowledge, a lot of facilities, a lot of expertise in every topics one can imagine related to the automotive industry. This is of course the advantage. The disadvantage of being part of such a big group is that we have to comply with some regulations that are common in the full group, and we are quite a small company, and to comply with those rules, regulation, policy, and etc. Is kind of hard for us, not being enough to enough people to do all these duties, let's say. Last achievement was last year, that it was the second victory of a MotoGP Constructor World Championship. Hopefully we will do also something else this year. We will cross our finger. Going further in our history, in our description of the company, the first thing that I would like to share with you is our vision. You see that our vision is to be the most desirable brand for power two-wheelers products, which means that in this sentence we did not mention the characteristics of those products. They can be standard combustion engines, or who knows, electric engines also, electric motors. So this is the vision that can be applied to any type of architecture. And the mission, if I can move to the other, to the other, the mission is to sell experience, not only product. Experience that can be achieved through our products, of course. So it's a very important statement, because it means that we need to provide the final customer not only with aluminium, steel, or plastic parts, but with something that can give the customer an amazing experience. So we are focused not only on mobility, but on amazing products that can be very enjoyable. And this is another point to take into account when we design our motorcycles. Then, moving to the next slide, hopefully. Brand values. I would like to spend the words about brand values too. Okay. Our brand values are style, sophistication, performance, and the last that was added is trust. And in the coming slides, we will have a quick look of each one of us, of those words. Style, because we are renowned all over the world to have a very distinguished design. It's, of course, a made in Italy design, but in our design center we have designers that are coming from all over the world. The fact is that we try to give them the chance to have their own interpretation of the Ducati style, and they are becoming more and more Italian each year they pass in Ducati. And unique means that even if there are some copies of our design coming from the Chinese market, those are not real, of course, but our style is very different from the other brands and very recognizable. Next word is sophistication, which means that we try to use the technology. I would like to go back one slide. To use the technology to give the final customer values, which means performances. So in first place, lightness, because of course performance, especially in a motorcycle, is achieved through the power of its engine, but also through lightness of its component. And to do so, we need to be very creative, even if we are all engineers. And the thing that is peculiar of Ducati is that we are able, at least the people said so, that we are able to combine a very nice design to a functional structural part. You see in this picture, this is the Swingarm of a Superleggera. Is a limited edition bike sold just in 500 units. That is made out in carbon fiber. Many of its structural components are in carbon fiber, and one of the Swingarm is one of the most complicated one because it has a hollow shape, which means that to be manufactured you need to use sophisticated lattice bladder, silicon bladder, to build the hollow structure. But you can see that also the shape and the surfaces of this highly structural part are designed with a very refined, let's say, care of detail. And this is something that distinguishes us from the others. Performance, I mentioned before lightness, of course. Lightness is one of the most important features that we look for in each of our parts. And sportiness, this is a characteristic that is present in more or less all of our products. We work a lot with Ducati Corse, and this picture is an example of that. It's a wind tunnel campaign that we did with the help of the experts that designed the MotoGP bikes. And the aim of this campaign was to define the shape of the wings that we applied to the fairings of the latest Panigale V4. Having the chance to use the expertise of Ducati Corse also for the products that we sell is another advantage that we have. Ducati Corse is sort of an advanced research and development department that we can use when we have to solve the most challenging task or problems. Trust. I mentioned trust. The trust was added quite recently, and the reason is that all the very famous brands, they need to build also trust in their customers because the customers, they expect to be able to trust the brand. I mean, no one would be happy if an iPhone would break too early, or the screen is not visible after 5 days of usage. You cannot expect that, because your standard of quality and reliability of such brand is very high. And to fulfill this expectation, you need to work on a daily basis on quality, and of course reliability has to be assured 100%. Therefore, we check the response of our customers doing the so-called net performance score measurement. This is a measurement of net promoter score. Net promoter score is an index of how a brand would be recommended to a friend, which means that you are a promoter if you will recommend this brand to one of your friends, and you are a demoter if you are, on the contrary, not willing to say that the brand is reliable or has a quality or enough quality. If you subtract the number of demoter from the number of promoter, you will end up with a number which in percentage is a so-called net promoter score, NPS. And this is a very powerful index of the quality that we are providing to our customer. And I have to say that in the latest years, our numbers are increasing very much, and we are quite happy of the work that we have done and the results that we obtained through that work. As I said before, the world of Ducati is not only motorcycles, but a lot of other things that you see in this chart. So apparel, accessories, of course, licensing. We work a lot with brands that are in line with our values to develop things that are not directly related to motorcycles. Of course, all the processes related to maintenance or used vehicles. Then there are a lot of courses, or let's say academy, that we sell to our customers that want to improve their riding skills, both on track, off track, and then there are events and clubs of Ducati owners, the so-called DOC clubs, Ducati Owners Clubs. Let's move on. If I can go on the next slide. I don't know how to do. Premium. Yes. We are a premium brand, which means that we can sell our motorcycle to a price which is slightly higher than the competitors, and this can only achievable through the fact that we provide features that are not present in the competitor's motorcycle, or that are of a higher value than our competitors. Italian is another characteristics that I don't have to stress with you guys. Lightweight design, yes. This is our main focus, and if you design a frame, maybe you are more, it is easier for you to think that the lighter it is, the better it is. But if you design a very small part of a fairing, you have to take into account lightness again, because lightness is built 1 gram after another, which means that you have to work on the full package to gain the final result. And of course, innovation is a great part of that, because introducing new materials or new technologies, you can improve with respect to your competitors, and I'm working a lot on that. High quality, as said again, that we take care of quality in all the steps that leads from the design to the manufacturing of our motorcycles. And our manufacturing and our assembly in Ducati is made by hand. If you have ever seen an automotive plant, this is very different from what we do, because an automotive plant is highly automated, and it has to deliver hundreds of thousands of cars per year. So we will see afterwards, but our volumes are much more lower than that, and we are able to provide handcrafted quality due to the fact that we do not build so many products per year. Even if we want to increase our volumes, we would not to lose the handcraft quality that characterize our products. I'm trying to go to the next slide, but it's not working. Performance redefined, what does it mean? It means that it's not only about high peak power or maximum torque. We would like to deliver a performance also on the lower end or lower type of usage of a bike. So a bike should be also comfortable to be ridden at very low speed or low RPM. We have to take into account the comfort of riders, but also passengers, and it is something that seems to be natural, but if you come from a very strong racing heritage, it is something that you can maybe forget about, thinking that only high performance and sportiveness could be the solution for a Ducati rider, but it's not like that. Of course, sport motorcycle, the red one especially, are what we are known for, and we use not only the image of sportiness, but we transfer the technology coming from the MotoGP to our production motorcycle. Of course, not the same year, because we have to keep some technology like confidential, at least for a couple of years, but after a couple of years, a typical example is the Ducati traction control, which is a very sophisticated system that was developed starting from the idea used in the MotoGP championship, of course with some adjustment to be used in a production motorcycle. The model range, if I can go back one slide, okay, our model range is here in this slide. You see that we have very different type of motorcycles, from cruiser to off-road to dual to sport bike, naked bike, and also I've mentioned here e-bike and e-kick scooter, because I told you that we are working in licensing with other brands, and we understood that those are two segments in which we can deliver a product that is perfectly in line with the values of our motorcycles, but on a totally different segment. Racing. I told you that, of course, racing is a very big part of our history and experience. I would like to move on to the next slide. This is what we achieved so far in the MotoGP, but maybe if you are passionate on MotoGP, you already know all those numbers. There's a similar slide in the next slide dedicated to Superbike, but I added to the presentation also the next slide, which is dedicated to Moto E, because starting next year, 2023, for the following 4 years, we will be the supplier of a Moto E to all the teams that will compete in the World Championship. And this is really a very challenging project for us, because we started from scratch. and we also had to build the competencies to design and develop an electric motorcycle for the very first time, and not a very small one, but a racing motorcycle, so with the highest performance possible. We discussed it with Dorna, who is the organizer of a championship, in order to agree the specification that the bike should have, and of course it should be lighter than the bike that is being used these days, and more powerful, and with a higher range, and that was really very challenging. We were very happy to be able to build and test the first prototype. Tests are more or less each week or each 2 weeks there's a test, because we are in the full development of a bike, and then by the end of this year we need to build the bike, assemble all the bike, and give the bike to the teams that can be trained on how to use it and how to set up on time for the beginning of next year. This year there will be finally the World Ducati Week. It will be end of July. We missed last year and the year before due to the pandemic, and hopefully there will be the gathering of people coming from all over the world, like in the year pre-pandemic. We are really looking forward to it, because it's a great occasion of seeing so many old bikes also, classic, restored, or bikes coming from very, very far away. It's amazing. Next slide. Okay, facts and figures, yes. Just to give you an idea of the dimension of Ducati, dimensions, oops, sorry for that. Okay, headquarters is in Borgo Panigale, Bologna, and but we have another assembly plant in Thailand, in the area of Pattaya, Rayong, it's the region. And the decision to build this plant was taken because we do not want to build a motorcycle in Thailand and then sell them here in Europe or in the Western market. We would like to reach new markets in the Far East, building a motorcycle directly there. And why? Because it was cheaper than exporting motorcycle built here, and it was a way of being closer to our final customer and to build bikes that are dedicated to those markets. We have another assembly plant who is actually not owned by Ducati, but it's a service provider that works in the CKD way, which means we provide them with some components, they assemble the components, and then we have to source some of the parts of the bike in Brazil in order to avoid to pay high duties importing our products there. On the lower part of the slides, there are the so-called national sales companies, which means offices that help to develop the network and to sell our products in all those countries. Those are the volumes that I was mentioning before. You see that there is a very big growth going from 29 to before the pandemics, let's say, 2017. In 2015, we faced a really big growth due to the introduction of Scrambler. I didn't mention Scrambler in our product range because now we are talking about Ducati, and you know that Scrambler was built as a separate brand. So it is not Ducati Scrambler, but it is Scrambler Ducati, which means you can address that like Mini with BMW. Mini is owned by BMW, but it is a separate brand because the brand features and brand values of Scrambler are totally different from the one of Ducati. And after 2015, we continued the growth, but with a rate that was slightly lower. Then we faced a drop in our sales, especially in 2020. And last year was a record again, 59,447 units sold worldwide. We were very lucky to to grow more than the other markets, like the automotive or volume automotive industry. Also the premium brands in the car segments, they had a growth similar to ours. We explained that, saying that being the people stuck in their houses for so long, they wanted to own something enjoyable and to spend their time alone on a motorcycle, on a beautiful motorcycle. It's something that is compliant to any pandemic, of course. And yeah, maybe that was one of the reasons why our products had so huge success next year. The other one is that we launched Multistrada. That was, I have to say, a really big success, commercial success, and it is also now a big commercial success. Now the problem is to provide the product to the customer due to a lot of problems of supply chain, which means to buy parts, cheap shortage, heavy cost, high cost of transportation. In the end, they are limiting our growth, unfortunately. This is the distribution of sales with regards to the region. You see that Italy is 15%, so it is not our main market. Usually North America and Italy, they are our main market depending on the year. One is some digits more than the other. Last year North America won by 4 counts. Our distribution network is very important. We invested a lot in the growth of our network. It is very important to be close to our customers, because nobody wants to drive 200 kilometers to buy a bike. They want to be close to the shop so that they can buy accessories or have a maintenance done in a very quick way. So we have 632 dealers and they are growing. Going further, yes. This is the, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with this thing here. Okay, Mooner. Why I said Mooner? Because as I told you, one of the objects of today was to let you know which are the source of talent that we hire in Ducati. And I would like to mention Mooner at first, because maybe you know that we are founders of the Motorcycle University of Emilia-Romagna, together with the brands that you see pictured here, and together with the 4 University of Emilia-Romagna. There are 7 courses of studies that they last 2 years, and they are tailored to the needs of the company that you see here. So there are topics especially dedicated to what we would like to have as a competence in the people that we will hire in the next future. Also during the course of study, the candidates, they have to do an internship, and the first choice is to do the internship in one of the companies. Therefore, we host a lot of internship. We define some projects, and we select the candidates, and usually they are very clever, but we try to do a selection in any case in order to find the best candidate for each project. And I have to say that there are a lot of people that did the internship and then were hired after graduation. So Muner for us is a very important source of talent. I mentioned one of the course is named Advanced Motorcycle Engineering, and it's specific to the need of our R&D department, mechanical and electronical engineering, and endothermic powertrains, but also something that has to deal with electronics and BEV design, as it is written below. Another source of talents is definitely Moto Student. We started the sponsorship of Moto Student it was 2016 or 17, I don't remember exactly. And the very first participation was in 2018, and the Moto Student, the Unibo Motorsport team arrived third, and best rookie, being the very first participation. Last year there was the second participation of Team Unibo Motorsport, and they finally won the competition. We decided to sponsor the Unibo Motorsport to gain knowledge on the design and development of electric motorcycles. Then, of course, now that we have the Moto E project, the focus is more on Moto E, but I have to say that we learned a lot working together with the students. I followed directly them in the development, and I understood quite clearly which were the challenges to overcome to develop an electric motorcycles. Apart from that, which is a very technical issue, I have to say that the students that work not only on their academic duties, but also on this project, they can have an improved experience, and they can face challenges that are very similar to the one that they will face in industry or in the working environment. Therefore, they finish their course of study with some advantage to the colleagues that didn't want to challenge themselves in such demanding project. So this was my last slide, and I hope that, yes, there is time enough to answer some question. If you have one, you can do a question in Italian. They told me to do the speech in English, but I accept a question also in Italian.
Which are the key points you look in candidates for Ducati?
First of all, passion for the product. We in Ducati, we are all enthusiasts of motorcycling. I mean, we are not expert driver, but at least we enjoy driving our motorcycle, and if you are passionate on a topic, you will put this 10% of effort more than if you are not. Therefore, passion is definitely something that we are looking for on a candidate. And then, I mean, apart from the technical aspects that, of course, should be there, we evaluate the approach to problems. So in a standard interview, we simulate some technical problems that can be maybe not too easy to solve or not too obvious, let's say. But we do not want to see if they give the right answer, but at least if they are able to think about it, build a reasonable approach to solve the problem, even if they do not reach the correct answer. We evaluate the way in which they approach a difficult task, and of course doing that in a let's say, stressful situation because you are in front of someone that want to evaluate your performances, give us also a hint on how they will behave in a stressful situation. And I have to say that the motorcycle industry is quite stressful because the competition is very strong, and the market is not growing so quickly. Therefore, you have to steal, let's say, a customer from your competitors. And to do so, the only way is to build products that are far better than your competitors. And to do so, you have to work very, very hard in a very short time, which means stress, which is not always bad. Sometimes it's something that if you can work on it, can give you the push to find smart solutions. I don't know if I have an answer to your question.
Yeah. And which are the experience you look for in candidates?
Experience? You mean?
Such a road experience, or I don't know, track experience, races experience, or something like that.
Yeah, this is not mandatory, but of course it's a plus because it means that you have worked directly on the product, so you know what you're talking about more than other, not only from a theoretical point of view. So therefore, this is of course a plus in a CV, but it is not mandatory. I mean, we evaluate the academic fundamentals, let's say. You have to have a very strong basic. Therefore, I cannot hide that we evaluate a lot the final marks of a candidate, because usually this is an index of how hard the candidate has studied and how strong are the technical basis. But then, apart from that, of course, we evaluate also other experience that can not only be on the motorcycle field. I mean, being able to, let's say, organize an association, for example, could be something valuable, because it means that you have spent some of your time to do something which is not directly connected to engineering, and you were able to organize a project, which means that hopefully you will be able to organize a motorcycle project too. You know what I mean? Il microfono? Ce n'è una qui. È per quelli da casa, credo.
Buonasera, volevo chiederle, dall'esterno sembra che Ducati abbia un po' cambiato mentalità. Mentre nel passato era il pilota che si doveva adattare alla moto stessa, ora sembra invece che sia più il contrario. È nata la Desert X, c'è la possibilità di avere un assetto anche più sportivo con la V4 SP, e mi chiedevo, questo cambio di mentalità è nato soprattutto per sviluppare la moto ed essere più innovativi?
No, in realtà, questa è una bellissima domanda. In realtà durante la presentazione vi ho mostrato una chart che si chiamava Performance Redefined, oppure forse lo devo dire in inglese. Performance Redefined means that we want to address some type of performances that are not the most obvious one, not only peak performance, but also comfort and versatility, which means that the bike should run in a very smooth way at low speed, low RPM, but also be sportive if you want to use it in a sportive way, which means it is not the rider that has to adapt it himself using the clutch a lot, because otherwise the bike won't run in a smooth way at low speed. But there should be a riding mode suitable for using the bike in a sportive way, and if a rider wants to be very relaxed, he should be able to use it in a very relaxed way. So I think that this approach started from that. Before Performance Redefined, we had other keywords that guided our way of designing a motorcycle. But when we started with that, we changed our approach. So we started to develop, as you said, lower suspension kits in order to provide a way of putting the foot down to the ground in a very safe way, also to people not more than 1 meter and 80 centimeter of height. And other, customization that were not designed before, now they are part of a development of new projects. I mean, we start thinking of that from the very beginning. It's not something that we add saying, oh, we forgot that maybe in the China market some people would have liked to be more comfortable with a low seat or low suspension. So you're right, we change our approach. The customer is now our focus, and everything is centered to the customer, and we want to give the customer the ability to tailor the product on his needs.
Avrei un'altra domanda.
Certo.
Volevo chiederle, com'è possibile che Ducati sia sempre così avanti, se così si può dire anche in MotoGP? È stata la prima che ha introdotto, volgarmente dette, le alette, l'abbassatore, cioè è incredibile.
In one of the, see, I think that also our competitors, they are amazed that each year there's a new stuff to copy, let's say. No, the thing is that the improvement of a product cannot be stopped. You need to work on it, and the final performance is achieved 1 gram after the other, or 1/10 of a second after the other. And you cannot think of a single part that can solve the problem of a bike. You need to work on many components. And I have to say that Gigi Dall'Igna is very clever, because he has got a team of experts who is really amazing. They are super clever on their own field, saying dynamics, aerodynamics, and so on, and leaving them free to make some mistakes sometimes ends up in nice ideas, because what you see is the result of a development. So the final result is that, but you cannot know how many tries have been done before, and being able to do some mistakes, of course, without missing the goal in the end, make them free to think to very new and innovative approaches, and it seems that it is working a lot, because if you see the winglets, they have been used by all the other competitors after Ducati, all the same thing for other stuff like abbassatore and so on. The so-called spoon, the cucchiaio in front of the rear wheel, the same. And they're trying to stop our ingenuity, let's say, inventività, fighting us with the rules and regulations, but this is, I think, normal, because if you see that you are behind from a technology point of view, you will try to stop your competitor with any mean. Sì, anche. No, but this is slightly different, because I think that the fact that running very low pressure increase your grip is known since the very beginning of racing. The fact that there is a way of measuring this pressure which is not uniform and not precise and not, how can I say, checked, but only monitored, which is different, which means that they try to control for a safety reason, mainly. The pressure that are run is a thing. Adding new feature is something very different.
Grazie.
16:23. Se avete ancora, if you have some other question or something that you would like to ask me regarding, I don't know, anything on the presentation, I'm fully available.
Se vuole le faccio un'altra domanda io.
Vai.
No, volevo chiederle, Ducati si sta avvicinando al mondo elettrico soprattutto per quanto riguarda racing.
Sì.
Si avvicinerà anche al mondo stradale con l'elettrico?
So this is a hard question to answer. I mean, of course, having invested a lot of money to develop a racing motorcycle was not intended only to compete for 5 years in the Moto E Championship and then stop. It's a way of gaining knowledge, building knowledge in the people that are working in Ducati and Ducati Corsa, because it's a shared project. And sooner or later we will present our new electric motorcycle, but there's no start of production date yet fixed on our product range plan, because we are waiting for the technology to be ready to let us present a motorcycle that can be comparable to a sportive bike with a standard combustion engine, both from a power point of view and from a range point of view, without affecting too much the performance in terms of handling or how fun is to ride a bike. And nowadays, with the technology of batteries, even the most advanced that we have in the market, it's not possible to build such a bike. But I believe that in the coming years, there will be some big steps in the battery technology, and hopefully that gap will be reduced, as let's say, and that will be the time when we will be on the market with an electric motorcycle. I know that it is not a very precise answer, but I cannot be more precise than that. Okay, I think that we are done. There's a... Sì?
Vorrei sapere che clima si respira nell'azienda lavorativamente, se riflette anche quello che è lo spirito e la passione motociclistica, com'è lavorare in Ducati.
Sì. As I said before, you have to work very hard, because we are, depending on the the month of the year, we are from 1,200 people, 1,400 people, because we hire a lot of temporary workers for the peak season. But they are workers, not designers or engineers, which means that the number of engineers are more or less the same during the full year, and we have a lot of projects going on at the same time. So, I mean, you have to work very hard. But of course, when the results are so positive on the racing, but also I mentioned the sales last year were very, very high. This gives you a good motivation to work even harder. And as I said before, passion is something that influence your way of working, and after working for the first month in Ducati, even if you are not familiar with motorcycles, you will end up doing driving license or buying or doing the leasing of a bike and so on, because you cannot be passionate of such nice products. It's not like selling washing machines, you know. Therefore, passion is something that accommodates every one of us, and the other one is working very hard but as a team, which means not fighting each other but trying to help each other, which is a very good thing that I've seen in Ducati, especially in those recent years. So I have to say that I really enjoy working there. Otherwise, I work here. I work in Ducati since 1996. That means that it's not such a bad place to be, no? Don't you think? Okay. So, thank you so much. I hope that the overview was interesting, and thank you again for being here today with me.